Hello everyone and Happy New Year. I have taken a much needed break, but now I am back. I have been active over on my Instagram. If you don't follow me already, it's at Mummy Pickles. And yesterday I posted something about safe bed sharing and a lot of you got in touch and wanted more information or just wanted to chat about it, and I thought this is definitely worth making a video about. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how to bed share safely with your baby. Now I'm not going to keep you waiting, I'm going to get straight into how to do it, the position that you need, because I know that if you're watching this video that's probably most likely what you're after. But after I've shared with you the position that you need to adopt in the bed with your baby, I'm going to talk about some other things that you must make sure that you can check off your list before you can safely bed share with your baby. So make sure you keep watching till the end of the video to find out all about those. Okay, I've positioned you, I think, in the best way possible for you to be able to see what I'm talking about. Now, obviously, I'm not wearing pajamas, I'm wearing clothes, but in this case, you would be wearing pajamas. I'm going to talk a little bit after I've shown you the positioning about what you might want to wear. Okay, so we're in the bed, and just imagine that you're in the bed with your partner. Now, if you are sharing the bed with your partner and they're not sleeping in the spare room, which actually is what I did just because it meant we had more space in the bed, your partner needs to be behind you. So the baby is always on the outside. This is the outside edge of the bed here, not in the middle of the bed. And of course, that's because it's not safe then if your partner were to roll onto them. Partners will not wake as easily if babies are stirring, so it's just not safe to have them next to your partner. So baby needs to be here next to you. Now, somebody did ask me a question on Instagram as to what do you put here to stop your baby rolling. Now, if your baby's very small, they're not going to be rolling anyway, and I've certainly never had a problem with this. But if you are fearful that your baby's going to roll, you could put a bed guard here, like you get for a toddler bed, a mesh bed guard, or if you've got a co-sleeping crib, then that might be there, so that kind of provides some extra surface area for your baby. Or probably the safest option of the three is just to move back in the bed so the baby has lots of space. Of course, then you'll either need a huge bed or your partner definitely will need to be out of the bed. So let's talk positioning. You need to be lying down with your arm above the baby's head, and then your arm is separating the baby's head from the pillow here. So baby's on their back because obviously that's safest for sleeping, and then your arm here to stop the pillow getting onto them. And actually what I do normally is tuck the pillow right behind me, so then there's nothing actually there to get onto the baby. Now, with regards to covers, that's probably the bit that is the most potentially dangerous, because of course, if you imagine you've got a duvet on, we don't want that to happen. So you need to make sure that your covers are right down below the baby and not on the baby at all. So if they're in a sleeping bag or something, you can just kind of tuck it over the top of them. I tend to put it like this in between my legs just to stop it from riding up, and I make sure that it's nice and low down there. Now obviously that is going to mean that you're a little bit chilly up top, so you'll need to wear something warmer here. And then generally that seems to be fine. It won't ride up if you've got it in between your legs there, and you will be sleeping quite lightly, although you will be sleeping, because you're right next to your baby and naturally you will wake up. With regards to where your legs go, you need to make sure that you're in a C shape. So I've shown you already how your arm goes, and then your legs curl up underneath the baby, and that just stops them slipping down at all because your legs are there, so they can't go anywhere, and they can't go up obviously because your arm is here. So this, and probably your arm like this, is the position that you would be in if you were doing safe bed sharing. So if your baby needs to feed, it's a really great idea if you can get used to feeding on your side, because then what you can do is roll your baby to feed, and you can actually even drift and doze while your baby's feeding. And you can, if you're really good, you can get used to feeding on both sides like this. I was never very good at that, so I used to flip the baby over to the other side of the bed because, as I said, my partner didn't sleep here, so we could do either side. And then, as baby's nicely demonstrated there, you just need to make sure that you roll them back onto their back after they have finished feeding, if you can, because it's not so safe if they're like this, obviously, from a breathing and, you know, oxygen flow point of view. So try and roll them onto their back. And generally they're not too unhappy to sleep on their back when they're next to you, because they have got that body heat from you, the warmth, and you can of course use your hand there to comfort them. The only exception to this really is if you have a reflux baby, because they're going to want to be upright after you feed them. So you will have to sit up to feed them, keep them upright for 30 minutes, and then lay them back down next to you afterwards. So now you know how to lie in the bed with your baby safely, and we know that positioning is really the key to everything. You also need to bear in mind a few other quick things before you safely bed share with your baby. The first one of those being making sure that nobody in the bed has been drinking alcohol, smoking, or taking medication which makes them drowsy or sleepy. Now that goes for you or your partner that's sleeping in the bed with you. If your partner has been doing any of those things, then it's safer for them to sleep in another bed, but ideally just out of the room, especially if it's smoking, because babies don't need to be in a smoking environment anyway. So if they can sleep in a spare room, if you have a spare bed, perfect. Otherwise, mattress on the floor, or don't bed share, which is probably the most realistic of those options. If you have been doing any of those things, then of course the answer is don't bed share at all with your baby that night. Now, research does show that it is best for exclusively breastfeeding mothers to bed share with their babies, and that's because you are a much lighter sleeper if you're a breastfeeder than if you're a formula feeder, so the evidence suggests. Now that doesn't mean that if you're combi feeding, where you're doing a bit of formula and a bit of breastfeeding, that you can't do safe bed sharing. And it might not even be to say that formula feeding exclusively means that bed sharing isn't safe, but I don't have the specific data on that, so you will need to do your own research. But just know that for the purposes of this video, they do say that exclusive breastfeeding makes bed sharing safer. The other thing you need to make sure that you absolutely don't do is swaddle your baby while you are bed sharing. That is because they will be way too hot and they will overheat. You give off a lot of body heat yourself, so you will keep them warm, and then it really depends on your environment and the temperature of your room as to what your baby is wearing. So a sleeping bag, a traditional baby sleeping bag, is okay. Not a swaddle sleeping bag where they have their arms restricted, but just a regular sleeping bag is fine. You might find that if it's warmer, that they don't need a sleeping bag at all and they can just be in their vest and baby grow or whatever else they are wearing. You can also do a cellular blanket over the baby, but I find that that tends to get kicked off or can ride up in the night, so really sleeping bag is safest if they need an extra layer. With regards to what you want to wear, and I mentioned this a little bit when we talked about positioning, you'll obviously want to make sure that you're wearing something warm on top, something to cover your arms, because your arms and the top of your body will get cold. Something, obviously, if you're breastfeeding, that gives you easy access to feeding, so with a zip or with buttons or something that you can open easily, and make sure that you're warm up to your waist, really. Although somebody on Instagram did comment that an adult onesie works particularly well, a thick one, because then you don't need covers at all, so you don't need to worry about covers going onto your baby at all. And that's it, you're good to go with safe bed sharing. If you would like some more information and research about safe bed sharing, then I will put some links and reading in the description below for you. I will also link to my original post so you can go over and read all the comments from people that have bed shared and their stories and how they found it effective. If you have a moment just before you go, please do remember to like this video, because it really helps me here on YouTube with that dreaded algorithm, pesky thing. And if you haven't already, then please do subscribe. I bring out lots of videos every week on parenting and specifically baby parenting. Thanks for watching this one, and I will speak to you all soon. Bye everybody.